This is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and today we're going to make this beautiful card using the Magnolia Lane suite from Stampin' Up. It's a Thinking of You card, and the sentiment on the inside says, "The journey of life is best shared with a friend. We'll get through this together." And I thought this was just a perfect sentiment for all that we're going through right now with all the quarantine and all the things that we're facing. I just thought this would be a beautiful card to send to someone. I'd been looking at a lot of cards with the Magnolia Lane suite, and I'd seen many of the different dies used, but I didn't see too many that focused on this die out of the set. And so I wanted to use that as a focal point, and so that's what we're going to do today. So let's talk about what's in the suite. The Magnolia Lane Designer Series paper, it comes in a 12 pack, and there's 6 designs, and you get 2 of each, and it's double-sided, so this is one side, and here's the other side. So if you don't like the particular designs that I've chosen, there are plenty of options here for you that you can choose out of this set. Now let's talk about the stamps that I used. So the Good Morning Magnolia stamp set, it's a 2-pack, and you get all these different sentiments, and then you get the 2 magnolias and a leaf and this beautiful accent piece, and I just love that accent piece. Then to go along with that, there's the Magnolia Memories die set, and it has dies that coordinate with the pictures, and then this and this together make up the focal point of our card today. So that's what we're going to use today. I do want to show you something about the die set before I go any further. When you get your dies, they come on a piece of poster board. This is the weight of poster board, and it's got double-sided tape on there, and the dies are stuck on there, and it just doesn't seem to hold them real well, and so I was always struggling with my dies. So I took a piece of magnetic sheet, and I just cut it the same size, and I put my dies on there, and that seems to really work well for me. So that's a tip, just something you might want to try. Then we're also going to use the Layering Squares die set, and that's this one. And we're going to be using, if you count from the largest, we're going to use this little scalloped squares. And if you count from the largest, we're going to use the 2nd largest and the 3rd largest. So that's the stamp and the dies that we're going to use. Then we're also going to use this Petal Pink metallic edged ribbon, and it's just really pretty. So we're going to use that on our card today, so you'll need that. So let's talk about the components of the card. What do you need to make this card? You're going to need a piece of Early Expresso, and this is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored in the middle at 4 1/4. And you don't need to write all this down because I will include it all in the description below the video. So you'll have all the dimensions there, as well as you'll be able to find it in my Facebook group. So you don't need to worry about writing that all down right now. You're going to need a piece of Whisper White, and the Whisper White I cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 because I just wanted a small border, just a thin border of the Early Expresso. I didn't want a thick border, I just wanted something thin. So that's why I cut it that size. Then the Designer Series paper, this one is 2.5 by 5 3/8, and this one is 1 5/8 by 5 3/8, and so that's going to make the front of the card. And then you're going to need 2 squares. This is the Early Expresso, and I just used that 2nd largest scalloped square die, and I put this through my die cut machine. That's where that came from. And then this is the Whisper White, and I used the 3rd largest, and I just ran that through my die machine. So that's the 2 squares that you're going to need. And then you're going to need a scrap of the Petal Pink, because that's where you're going to get the background of the focal point. So if you look at the card, you see the background, the Petal Pink. So you need a scrap of Petal Pink for that. Then you need a scrap of white to die cut the top part of the magnolia, as well as we're going to do the leaves on that. So that's what you need for the project. So let's get started with the stamping. So for the stamping, you're going to need your square, your Whisper White square, you're going to need your inside, and you're going to need your scrap. Okay, let's start with the inside. Let's start with the sentiment. And for this, I just used black ink for all of the stamping that I did. And we're going to start with the sentiment. Now, a tip I want to give you with your stamping, with your sentiments, in case you're new to doing stamping and doing cards. So with Stampin' Up, when you get your stamps, there is some assembly required. So you put this sticker on the back of the stamp. So unless you line that perfectly, you may look at this and it may not line up exactly with the stamp. So get to know your stamp. Remember, the top of the stamp is what you need to line up, not necessarily the greeting. Just depends on how easy it was to put that sticker on there. Sometimes it's hard to get on there. So, okay, we're just going to stamp this up. And you can just look at it and make sure it's got plenty of ink, right? And so if you need more ink, you can just stamp it some more. And so we're just going to center this at the top of the card. Like that. And then at the bottom, we're going to put this accent. Now, one thing, if you're new to stamping, this accent piece is really nice because it's not a completely full design. So sometimes if you don't get something stamped down all the way, you'll have those missing spots. Well, this is going to have those naturally because it's the design of the accent stamp. So that makes it really forgiving. So I'm going to just check, and yeah, I think I got enough ink on there. So I'm just going to decide about where I want it, and that looks pretty centered. So we're going to stamp that down, and we're done with that. So there you go. And then we're going to go ahead and stamp our front. So you're going to need your square. And you're just going to ink that up. Make sure you get it good and inked. And this is probably the hardest thing to line up of the whole project because this is your focal point. This is right on the front. We're doing a diamond. We're turning the square like a diamond. So you just want to kind of look, get it where you want it. And we're going to stamp. There you go. Okay. Now we're going to take our scrap of the white, and we're going to need 2 leaves. So I'm just going to stamp this up. Got plenty of ink on there. I'm going to stamp that one. And I'm going to stamp that one. Now, while these, we're going to be coloring with that on those. So I'm just going to close my stamp up, and I'm just going to real quick put my stamps. I know I'm doing this off camera, but I just want to get my stamps cleaned a little bit because I don't want the ink to set on there through the rest of the video. So I'm just going to take a second and wipe our stamps off while we're letting that dry a little bit. So always remember to clean your stamps, or else you're going to get your ink stuck on there, and then you're not going to be very happy when you go to stamp your next thing. So we've given that a few minutes to dry. Now I'm going to use the Stampin' Up! Blends. These are amazing. I need to do a caveat here. I am not an artist. I am not a colorer by any stretch of the imagination. So don't think that you have to be to do this technique, because I am not. But it makes it really easy with these markers. And I bought the duos, and this is the Mossy Meadow. So you have the Mossy Meadow Dark and the Mossy Meadow Light, and there's 2 different ends. There's one that's just a regular tip and more of a brush tip. I like the regular tip rather than the brush tip. That's just easier for me. So I'm going to take the darker color, and what I did is I just went along. If you think of a leaf, it has veining, and you can see that here. So I just went along the veins, just added the dark for the veins, like that. And I did that on both. Just along the veins. You can do the whole vein, you can do just a little of the vein, whatever you want to do. Remember, this is your card. and it's going to look great no matter what. So then I came back with the light, and all I did was just come in with the light, and it kind of blends the two together. And you can even, you know, if it helps to turn it, if that helps you to be able to color it better, then that works too, however you want to do it. And so you're just going to color this in, and you can start to see how it's shaping up, see how the dark ribbing is, and that's all I was going for with these. Then I went to the die set, and on the die set we have a leaf. So you're just going to put this around the leaf like so. Just work with it till you get it on there where you want it. Run that through the die machine and you'll have your leaves. Now I've already got two that are already done, so we're not going to spend a lot of time with that, but I did want to show you the process. Okay, so now we're done with our markers, so make sure your caps are on there really good. So we're going to go back to our base, our card base, which is our Early Expresso. So what I have found, if you just try to fold it, you just fold it and start pressing, a lot of times you can end up with it offset, uneven, because it all depends on how you got it in your score machine. So what I do is I put my edges together, and then I just take my bone folder and I work it like that, and I get much better results with the cards being even at the end. So you're just going to go over that and get a good, nice, crisp fold on there. Now you're ready to start putting the middle together. So we're going to add our middle piece, our inside piece that we already stamped. And I'm going to pull my silicone mat. If you don't have a silicone mat, these are great. And the reason is, invariably, I'll go too far off the card and I'll get on my work table, and then everything from there on is sticky. So if I use my snail on my silicone mat, that solves that problem. So I definitely recommend the silicone mats. So we're just going to put some snail all the way around. Just like so. And then we're going to add this. Now, this is probably, in card making, one of the hardest parts, getting the stamp straight and getting the things straight as we glue them on the card. And I saw somebody share this, and this has helped me really the most. So what I do is I lay that down flat. And then I just kind of, I don't press down, but I just hold it and I look at both sides and I look across the top to make sure it's straight. And that's how I do it, to try to get it straight. And sometimes before I stick it down, I'll look at the bottom, you know, to see where I am at the bottom. But I know this is a very, very slim border that we're working with today. So I'm just going to try to line it up. And I'm going to press down. And there you go. The inside's done. How's that? Okay, so then we're going to work on the outside. Now, we're going to need our designer series paper. You can try to put this together and hold it together and finagle with it and have fits with it. So what I decided to do, because it's not going to show anyway, the back of your card is not, the back of this designer's paper is not going to show. So what I did is I just turned it over and lined it up. And then I took a piece of good old Scotch tape, and I'm going to turn this so I can make sure my ends are lined up. And I just put some Scotch tape on there to hold it. That way I can work with it, and I don't have to worry about the pieces becoming uneven or doing anything like that. And this is never going to show. This is going to be hidden. No one's ever going to see it. So that gives me that just makes it so much easier to work with my piece. Then you're going to need your ribbon. Remember, you're going to cut your ribbon a little bit longer than your piece, which is 5 3/8. So your ribbon's got to be longer than 5 3/8. Now, what I did to start is I just put a little snail on the back, right across where the two pieces meet on both ends. And I'm going to bring my silicone mat back out because I'm going to be sticking this over here. So what I did is I just worried about getting one end started. Get one end centered. Making sure you have enough on the other end to tuck under. I just centered, and this is a little bit translucent ribbon so you can see through it. So I just made sure that where the two pieces meet, and I'm trying to angle this for the camera, so just make sure that's like that, and then just give yourself a good tuck on the corner. Okay, now what I did about in the middle, I put some more snail right along where the two pieces meet. And you don't really have to worry about that because it's not going to show. It's going to be behind our diamond shape that we're going to put on here, but it helps hold the ribbon. So then I just walk my fingers. I make sure I'm keeping it centered right on the groove where the two pieces meet, and I just come along there like that to help get it straight. And then I just continue to walk my fingers up, continue to make sure it's in the middle. As long as you keep the two pieces in the middle, you'll be straight. And then you just want to pull that, you want it to be tight so that when you wrap it around the corner, you don't have a little slack. And there you go. And it's done. So then we're going to turn this piece over, and we're just going to add snail all the way around. You're well on your way to having your card made. You've got the hard stuff done now. I love the magnolias. I think magnolias are just a beautiful flower. They're elegant. They're just a beautiful flower. So I was excited for this set. Okay, so then we're going to take and add this to our card base. Now remember, we just have a really, really small border. So when you're figuring out where you want to put this, you've just got a really small border at the top. If you go too far down, you're going to end up off the board. So we're just going to smooth that on. There. How's that? Isn't that nice? Okay, so then you're going to need your square out of espresso. You can kind of flip it around, see which side you like. And then we've got our sentiment that we stamped on there earlier. So we're just going to take some snail, and we're going to add it to the back here. Okay. I'm going to scoot the silicone mat out of the way. Okay, now what I have found is I'm looking at, when I'm trying to line this up, I'm looking at these corners. And I'm trying to line the corners up, because if they're centered and if they're in line, the rest of it's going to follow. So I'm just taking a little bit of time to get that straight. And there you go. Okay, now I attached this with some dimensionals. So I'm going to pull over some dimensionals, and we're just going to add those to the back. And I used one in each corner because this is going in the mail. If you're giving this to someone, you may not have to use so many, but because it's going in the mail, I wanted to make sure that I had plenty on here. And I'm just creasing in the middle because it helps these come off better. And so then I'm going to pull our tabs off so we can be able to stick it on. Now, you're just going to figure out where you want it. You could, if you wanted to set it to a side, you could do that. On this one, I just chose to go in the middle, like that. There you go. I mean, we've almost got this thing whipped now. Okay. So remember I told you were going to cut out, you were going to die cut the two pieces. You're going to cut this one out of the Petal Pink, and you're going to cut this out with this die out of the white. It takes both of them together to make this. Now what I did, if you have a sticker machine, you can run this through a sticker machine and get the back sticky. My problem with that is a lot of times that will leave the adhesive residue. When you go to put it on there, you'll see the residue. So I don't really like that option. So what I did is I just used liquid glue. Now this is more time consuming than putting it through a sticker machine by far. But what I did is I just used my liquid glue, and I just went in here and I took the time. Just took the time to spread this just like this. Doesn't take a lot of glue. And I just went along each of the parts to the Magnolia. And you definitely want to use your silicone mat for this because you're gonna run off the edge. But that's okay because it's on the silicone mat and it won't stick there, so you'll be able to easily wipe that off. So I just went all the way around. And the other thing with the liquid glue is when you go to put this on the pink piece, the liquid glue is so much more forgiving. You got some time. So that's another reason I went for the liquid glue, because I wanted to be able to have time to move it if I need it. Okay, so here's our pink piece. And I just gotta flip it over. Okay. So what I did is I found if I started at the bottom, it was easier to line up. And I just got those where I wanted and pressed down. There you go. Your Magnolia's done. Isn't that nice? It just gives a neat definition to it. So then we showed the leaves earlier, and I told you how to die cut them. So now you've got these leaves. And you can put them any way you want on your Magnolia. You got to figure out where you want them. And I'm going to pull these off of the mat just because they cling to the mat and they're hard to work with on the mat. I'll put them back on the mat when I go to glue. But you can see you could put leaves here, you could put leaves here, you could put, you could just do it however you wanted. Okay? What I ended up doing, what I found was the easiest for me, is I just kind of put the leaves together like that. I crisscrossed them. And I just added a little bit of the liquid glue over both pieces. And you want to make sure you got both pieces covered. Like that. And then I just came back with my Magnolia. And I just figured out, okay, I like it about like that, and pressed down. And you can see there's a little residual glue. That's why I use the silicone mat, because that's going to come right off. No problem. Okay, so now we're ready to stick this to our card. So you can kind of look around, okay, how do I want it? Kind of move it around, get what you want. And I just used a glue dot. Okay. And I think I like it about, I don't want to cover up my words, so I think I like it right about there on this one. Now, you'll notice that's different from the card I showed you. Let me bring that back Okay, so this one's off to the side, this one's more central. It doesn't matter, you can do it either way, you can do whatever you like. All right, now we're going to add some of these champagne rhinestone basic jewels. These are just so elegant looking. So what I did is I used a big one for the middle, and then I used the little ones at the bottom. I try to do odd numbers whenever I'm using these, usually 3 or 5. So there's that. And there's that. There's no right or wrong place to put these. It's wherever you think that it would look best. That's where your creativity comes in. And there we have it. Our card is done. Here's the one I made before. Here's the one that I made this time. Little bit different because I put the magnolia in a different place, but both equally beautiful. It's just what you want it to be. I hope you've enjoyed this card, and I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can subscribe below. You can hit the little bell so that you'll be notified when I upload another video. Also, in the links in the description below, I'll have links to my Stampin' Up! Webpage where you can go to order these products. If you fell in love with the magnolias like I did, you can go and order the products there. Or you can join my Facebook group and you can see what I've got cooking up, what I'm doing. Thanks, and I hope to see you again next time.